Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So again, we're at another league. I did put up a patch notes video earlier this morning where I went through it. There seems to be a bit of contentiousness about whether it is actually a buffed league or not. I err on the notion that it is buffed, others may not, but we'll see how the league plays out. Anyway, I think it's important we all keep an open mind, but that's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss what the hell we're going to play in this particular roguelike league. So fundamentally, looking at the builds that are available, there aren't really many nerfs to builds. While arguable, Occultist is still going to be very strong. Curses are getting sort of buffed by the fact that enemies are losing their ability to mitigate the sort of effect of curses. And things like, unfortunately, Lightning Strike Raider, which I was thinking of originally, I've taken off this list because there might be a bit of argument to say it has been nerfed a hell of a lot. Now, the good news is things like Seismic Trapper, go crazy, hasn't even been touched. And if you're a fan of melee, in particular, things like Boneshatter, they're actually buffing up its series disfavor, which you could, depending on the drop rate, could use as an earlier item. So these are all things that you could keep in the back of mind when you're looking at builds. Anyway, I've got a list here, a couple of builds from myself, some different builds, a minion build, and let's get into 5 good builds to League Start for 3.20. Alright, so the first build that we're going to feature here is actually from a creator called Anime Princess, and he's been updating the Spark Inquisitor for a number of leagues from what I can see, and it looks like he's only just put up 8 hours ago that he's going to be, at least at the time of this video's recording, at 8 hours ago that he's actually going to be updating the build for the new tree that's going to be coming out. And that's one thing to note, all these trees, there will be some minor tweaks because there are some minor changes to the tree coming, especially around the Occultist and Hex area. Now, looking at the overall build, it's actually quite robust. It gives you a leveling guide from 1 to 38 through 39 to 68 through to, Merc Lab, Uber Lab to level 100. And it's quite comprehensive. Now, looking at it, it does give you notes, basically how to level it up. Crafting recipes, gives you act by act gearing, which is pretty damn comprehensive. And for anyone who hasn't played Spark before, it basically is shoot little like lightning sort of sparks out from you in great projectile volumes, and they bounce off walls and kill everything around you. Now, being the Inquisitor, even though Pious Path has had a really minor nerf, some might not agree with that, it's still going to be extremely tanky, and it have a huge regeneration rate with health and things like that, which is why people have been playing Inquisitor league on league, especially for Righteous Fire builds. Now, as far as the build guide goes, follow his video, follow his channel. It's actually really comprehensive. Sitting down, he talks through everything, the disadvantages of the build. Now, how will this go in the new roguelike content for Forbidden Sanctum? It's actually going to work really well. Mainly because you can cast and bounce the sparks off walls, which means you can keep your distance from enemies, which means that you potentially have a higher probability of being able to complete the higher level content with that particular build earlier on in the piece. Anyway, I'll leave it up to you guys to check out his channel and his video. The link will be below in the description. Alright, so the second build that I'm going to feature in this curation is actually the Boneshatter Jugg from Goratha. Now, this is more so targeted as an SSF build, SSF hardcore build, and uses somewhat of a defensive layering tactic where you amalgam evasion and armor. Now, I did try this build in the just standard league to see if it actually worked, and it was legit, and it was bloody legit. Hinakora's Sight was a real Chad item to add into the build as well, because it just gets rid of any need to muck around with trying to max out accuracy, which is what the Jugg's really good at stacking to get attack speed. Now, some things just to remember with this, some barriers that you might find will be for two-handed weapons. You will need a high damage two-handed axe, in particular with this tree. You could do it with a mace. Now, from the patch notes, we did see that at series disfavor has had a huge buff, which pretty much means if you can get your hands on that, it might be worth actually trying, and it might be worth having a play around with the tree as well that Goratha has provided in his video. Now, I'll put a link to his video in the description. It's really good. He sort of explains through everything, what all the nodes do. If you want to switch to mace, you could switch to mace with this. It's not really gear dependent so much. It does have like one particular unique being Hinakora's Sight, And you do need a really good two-handed axe, you know, like 500 plus DPS, but you'll scale that up as you play through the game. And realistically, like, it's pretty hard to mess that tree up that he's provided as well. You could go in most directions and just adjust to the way that either your play style is playing out, or adjust to the damage that you're dealing with and tank up a bit more. But as an overall, really cool build. It works. Tried it out. I actually really liked it. I originally was going to league start it myself, and somewhat of a different variation, but I decided on something a little different, which will be the next item on the list, which is a build I, funnily enough, put together a little while ago. But anyway, this would be my pick for number 2 for 3.20. All right. Build number 3 is actually from me. So there's a few people that put out Vortex builds. Shack Central, I know he put a post up. I think he was saying that he was moving away from cold dot builds, but he has a lot of great content on his channel around this. However, last league I actually put out a league starter guide for Vortex Occultist. Now, there are changes coming to the Occultist Ascendancy. You'll be able to get Malediction on the tree, so there'll be minor adjustments that need to be made, and I will jump in and adjust my league starter video around this as well. I am, funnily enough, working on a true block low life league starter for this league for Cold Dot Vortex Occultist, which I'll also put all the POBs below in the description. From, I guess, early league start through to end game sort of crazy level skills. I'm also targeting with Vortex to get, you know, still the same survivability, but a hell of a lot more damage into like the 8 to 9 million DPS or cold dot range. Now, in the build, I have actually put in a fair bit of detail from leveling trees. So trees provided through to, you know, 15, 30, 50, 74 and endgame, and I actually did scale down most of, if not all of the skills, and provide the leveling skills. Now, I did have Freezing Pulse in this build originally as a leveling skill. I actually found that doing Absolution as soon as you could get that as just one of the best leveling skills in the game, quite frankly, and it hasn't been touched by the patch notes either. So as soon as you get to level 31, you switch to Vortex, and then you basically just breeze through the game. Now, I've had a lot of positive feedback on this video, so check it out as your third build option. I know a lot of guys who follow my channel are really keen on Cold Dot and asking me about it. Yes, I'll be playing Cold Dot on League Start. Yes, my trees are below, and yes, my League Starter guide from last league is still relevant, and I'll update the commentary and the tree as well as the new tree comes out for it. Anyway, this is my third build that I'd curate for this league. Okay, so build number 4 is actually from Kay, and I've featured her videos before. There's no scenario where I'm ever going to put together a minion build that is ever going to be better than what Kay puts together, so I am going to direct you to her. So this is actually her SRS popcorn or Summon Raging Skulls Necromancer build. It's super tanky at 175,000 effective hit pool, and the minion instability does some ridiculous levels of damage. Now, the gearing on the build is actually really modest. It's not like crazy levels of gearing. She has a build planner and everything else in between that you can refer to. However, her videos are extremely well constructed and well articulated. Now, I've had a look and I've watched all through her video, and it's actually really good. If you guys watched my live streams, I was playing through in the Endless, or was it Infinite Delirium, or whatever it was called. I was actually playing SRS. It's a really lazy build. Like, it's so easy. You just sit back, cast it, let the minions do everything. And really good for League Starter, especially if you just want to go into maps, blast the maps, and have an easy old time. This is the build that's going to help you do that. Void of all the issues that occurred with minions in last league with the change of all the gearing, this one seems to be somewhat of an unaffected build in that respect. Though, hop onto Kay's channel, check out her other videos as well. She makes an absolute ton of bloody League Starter guides around minions, minion army, and things like that to get you through to the end game so you can start mapping with minions really effectively. So this would be my fourth video that I'd recommend. Or fourth build, sorry. Alright, so the last build that I'm going to feature here is actually a build, again, from me from last league again. So this one took off surprisingly, and I readjusted the tree with the help of Zelors and Rubik, who are in my Discord. So if anyone wants to run Crackling Lance Inquisitor, you're welcome to drop into the Discord and ask questions. We pretty much mastered this build last league to get it absolutely slapping. With the number of people that played it, it ended out being super powerful. Now, the version that I ran Leadership's Price, which is a drop from Heist. And the leveling up was super easy as well before we even got there. But that being said, this particular this particular Crackling Lance build is more so focused towards delve-centric play, so it's super tanky, absolutely hammers in really hard with damage, like it's got a pretty good early damage rate, and you can pretty much get smashed by pinnacle bosses and everything and survive and walk out the other side, which is one of the best parts of the build. Now, some of the feedback we had last league was around the tree, the way that the pathing worked, and that I've provided. So if you actually move up to the cast speed nodes in the tree, it's a super easy build to play. Now, that being said, you could potentially later down the track, if you wanted to spec in more damage, go into a Doriani setup, and because we can't craft the negative resistance rings, you could use Venter's Gambles to get away with this with other various different sources where they are available. But I'll leave it up to you guys. There's a full leveling guide, build guide that I've put together with a full leveling tree that'll help you sort of work your way through. Off of the feedback from last league with some of the people that ran into difficulty specking into more defense earlier, I retooled this tree with Zelors and Rubik's, so we've put up adjusted notes and everything within the POB on the video that'll be in the description below. I'll have a look at the tree as well when the new tree becomes available in Path of Building, and I'll amend this as well moving forwards. Now, if you didn't want to run Lightning, you could run Blazing Salvo, and basically same tree, same approach. I'll put a link to the Blazing Salvo League starter from last league as well. Super powerful. Both the last two leagues I've played both of these builds, and they have been incredibly reliable at going down into about 500 to 600 delve and pretty much taking out everything in the game except Uber bosses. Now, if you went and got Mage Bloods on these, you could basically tank your way through Uber bosses and survive that as well. Anyway, super good builds to look at, but yeah, I'll put a link in the description to it. Okay, so as always, I hope this list provides a little bit of insight into some builds that you could potentially play. Now, the builds that are featured aren't necessarily conducive to everybody's playstyle. Completely understand that. They are builds that I'm recommending based on a few of them in particular I've got a fair bit of experience in. I've tested Boneshatter. I have played SRS, and it's quite a good build and really, really easy to gear up, and K's guides are incredibly informative and easy to follow. And Spark has been pretty much an on-meta build every single league for the last few leagues, and is quite powerful. Now, points to anyone who can get it working with Voltaxic Rift. For anyone who was in the game many, many years ago, Voltaxic Rift used to be a chaos conversion item for Spark builds in particular, so maybe that could be something you look at as well. Anyway, until next time, like and sub to the channel. Make sure you follow the Twitch as well. I do multicast when we have league start, though I am working away currently, so hence the 720p resolution. So I'll be streaming on YouTube when we do league start. But until next time, have a good one and stay filthy.